Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Music Production Podcast. I'm your host, Brian Funk. On today's show, I have Rob Parton, and Rob is a musician, producer, and he is also pretty active in the music making community in general. And what we want to get you to know about is something coming up called Make Music Day on June 21st, which is a day where you can make music using specific samples that users have uploaded. And it's a way to get together with people in the music making community all across the world. I think it's a cool thing. And sometimes we're all looking for projects and reasons and motivation and inspiration. I think this is something you can jump on if you're struggling to find a good reason to work and a good reason to get work done. Rob, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you for having me. Yeah, great to be here.
Yeah, it's really nice to have you too. I'm always excited when there's these nice like community things going on. I think in so many things, whether even if it's aside from music making and music production, a lot of times it's the communal thing that brings us together, and it's half the fun. Um, I have a 15-year-old nephew, and he's really into sneakers, and I'm asking him like, what is it about this that's so fascinating to you? And he came across the community. It became like a big part of it, the sharing of ideas and um, discussing the nitty gritty, nerding out on the details. So I think it's really important to have that, and sometimes when you're running a little low on your own inspiration, turning towards the community can really help you pull that together. So thanks for being a part of bringing all of that to people.
No, absolutely. Thank you. No, totally agree. I mean, I think community is essential to all music, really. I think it's what music it should be more about, really, more than anything, that whole practice of sharing, not just being on your own. And certainly for my own music making, it's made a huge difference just, for what I do and building collaborations with people in a community. And that's not just locally to me, it's as we're getting more connected globally through the internet and through the pandemic, it's around the world as well. And having the opportunity to talk to you today
Mm.
from across the pond. I'm in the UK here, so yeah, it's great.
As you were saying that, it kind of like dawned on me. If we were talking maybe like 100 years ago, of course music is communal. Like, how else do you play music? You need people to play with. You need to be there to hear it. There are no recordings. So it's kind of funny how we've come to this point now where you can do everything by yourself, all by yourself, when no one ever needs to hear it. And it's the community that is sometimes the most motivating thing and brings us together, which I think was probably the original idea and purpose of music in the first place.
No, absolutely agree. Yeah, we can easily just get sucked into our computers and forget about that human interaction, and
Mm.
yeah, yeah, it's so powerful, I think. So yeah, that's kind of where the motivations for Make Music Day have come from a little bit, and what we're doing for that this year. So
Nice. So, do you think you can tell us a little bit about it so people know, like, it's coming up really soon? We should have this episode out just before it starts, and maybe it might get some people to decide to make a last minute commitment to join in.
yeah, absolutely. So Make Music Day is actually the initiative we're running is called MixMash Studios. It's a part of a much bigger program of making music activities as part of Make Music Day. Make Music Day itself actually started in France in the early 80s, called Fête de la Musique. The whole motivation for that was about getting people out on the streets to play music, both amateurs and professionals, and kind of just encouraging sort of mass participation in music, really. So that, yeah, I'd say early 80s, I think it started, but today it's become a global movement. The 21st of June every year, there's now 130 countries participating around the world. All sorts of activities going on, from like brass band stuff to, amateur music making, drumming. Yeah. And the whole idea pre the pandemic was about getting people out live to experience things live, be it in a park, in a public place. I mean, in the UK, they've done stuff, in all sorts of spaces, really. As well as traditional concert halls and clubs and things like that. But obviously, with the pandemic kicking in, and the sadness and the impact it's had on live music, it obviously pushed a lot of things into a different direction, and now we're doing a lot more stuff online, which has its cons, but equally it's got its pros. I think it's been a way to connect with more people around the world, really, and actually, hopefully there should be some positives come out of it, maybe. But that's what I'm holding on to anyway, as we're all waiting to get back to some normal. But yeah, so MixMash Studios is a brand new initiative, a part of Make Music Day. It's building on something we ran last year during lockdown. Last year I was involved in an initiative called the Lockdown Sound Challenge, which was run by a producer called Harry Wrigley. Big shout out to Harry if he's listening. Essentially, that started when we got locked down in the UK, like quite early on, as just a way for producers to connect. We had about 10 of us participating each week. One of the producers or one of the participants would send through a bank of samples, and out of that we'd each have an hour to create some music.
Oh wow!
Which was quite tight.
Yeah,
and it wasn't going to be a full piece of music, of course. It's make a nice little short 1 minute piece, and then in the evening we'd then stream it, and all the participating producers would come together and we'd just listen to each other's tracks, what we'd done, and share and comment. And it was really, really nice. And that ran for quite a few weeks. And I was involved with planning something for Make Music Day, a park event before the pandemic. And then obviously that all changed. So working with Harry, decided, actually, why don't we do a special Lockdown Sound Challenge for Make Music Day last year? So we did that, and we did a call out for samples across the UK, which was great. We had about 30 people submitting samples. That was kind of a bit of an initiative we did last year. But at the same time, across the pond in the States, Bedroom Studios were doing something quite similar, working with producers who were doing their own call outs for samples and making tracks themselves. So this year we decided to join forces and make it much more of a global thing. We've teamed up together to create MixMash Studios. And that's now getting countries around the world participating as well. We've got a really good representation across the States. We've got lots of producers involved in Nigeria, across Europe, across the UK. We've got people in Turkey, Pakistan. It's taken it a lot more global. And as I was saying earlier, one of the benefits of the pandemic, we're actually connecting with more people around the world, and it's, if you like, building a more of a global community, really, which is really exciting. That's kind of a bit of background to it. Last week we launched our call for samples, which we're asking anyone, wherever you are, to send us in samples that could be used as part of the challenge. And we actually changed what we did last year. It's actually now a 24-hour track making challenge. So participating producers will be sent a selection of samples that are submitted from the call out, and then they'll have 24 hours to make a track. And the tracks will then be published online as part of Make Music Day, and we're going to be having a short broadcast as well, talking about some of the pieces that have been done. But we're also asking producers to sort of share their process, share their tracks on social media as well, using MixMash Studios hashtag and Make Music Day as well. That's sums it up a little bit. We've had a really good start to the sample submission so far. We've got about 30 submissions from around the world. Excited to say we've had Jamie Liddell kick things off for us as well. He submitted a few samples from his own modular synth creations, which are pretty good. We've got samples from Nigeria, quite a lot from Nigeria so far, UAE, a lot from the US, still pushing the UK thing a little bit. But the more countries get represented, the better. I think it'd be really exciting.
Well, that's cool. I love Jamie Liddell's podcast, Hanging Out with Audiophiles, and
it's incredible. I love it. I listen to it all the time. He's brilliant.
He's got
some of the techniques.
Great. Yeah, exactly. Let's get into the nitty gritty section of his show where he does some kind of audio experiment or challenge. and it's always interesting. And I bet whatever he's submitted sample wise is probably a lot of fun and very useful in a lot of ways.
Definitely. No, I think some brilliant source material there to
Mm,
build something from for sure. But yeah, it doesn't have to be. I think that's the thing to emphasize. It's not about it being a polished
right.
sample either. We want it to be completely raw as well. Just go out, use your phone, use whatever app you've got on your phone and record whatever you like, get creative with it, and send it in. Yeah, we've got a form, which hopefully we can share a link to.
Yeah, makemusicday.org slash
Yeah,
national dash project slash mixmash dash studios. I'll put the
that's
link
the,
in the show notes, but
okay, great,
yeah.
great. And I can also link you to the direct submission form as well,
Oh, great.
which if you could put that in the show notes, that'd be amazing. But yeah,
Definitely.
I mean, obviously, I think you've probably got a lot of producers listening to this as well. And, if you've got a synth line or something you've been tweaking for a while and you want to get that involved as well, by all means, yeah, we want to hear a variety of stuff, really. So,
Yeah, I
yeah.
think what you were just touching on about go out with your phone, whatever you get, is a really great way to approach sampling in general. I mean,
Mm.
I have a little, here it is right here. It's a little Roland RO7, little tiny field recorder. It's
Hey,
smaller
yeah,
than my
brilliant.
phone. Um,
Amazing.
I love it because I can carry it in my pocket. You could get the fancy Zoom. You can get the furry windscreens and the backpack, and have a whole kit if you like. But sometimes you just come across sounds randomly, and you probably have your phone on you. It's so much
Absolutely.
better to get that sound than to be snobby about it. Well, I'm gonna really need my proper gear to do that.
Yeah, no, agree.
Get it rather than
Yeah.
miss out on it. And I've found I used to tell people like the phone has the lousy mic, so you know, in a way it was kind of cool sometimes when you start stretching those samples. It brings out interesting artifacts because of the low quality. But
Yeah, yeah.
I don't even feel like I have a right to call it low quality anymore. I mean, it's a pretty darn good mic that you
Yeah.
just have at all times.
Yeah, I mean the technology's just got crazy, hasn't it? With phones now,
Yeah.
it's so much better. But yeah, I totally agree. I mean, I think there's something about capturing a raw sound that makes it a little bit more authentic, perhaps as well. Like, especially when you hear something. I mean, I'm always going out and hearing sounds. Be it, sometimes I'll listen to the washing machine. I'm one of
Mm.
those people that, go, wow, that's got a good groove.
Yeah.
Okay, quickly capture
Washing
that.
machine grooves. Yeah.
Yeah. Or, whatever it is when you're out and about, likewise. I mean, I've always got my phone in my pocket, but I have a little field recorder device as well. Actually, really old school one. Like, I think it's the Edirol, which is like a subsidiary of Roland way back.
Mm.
It's still going strong, but yeah,
Great.
it does the job. But yeah, when you hear a really interesting sound, I mean, most important thing is if you like it, capture it. Don't like try and get that high end equipment to record it. Just capture that moment, and
Mm.
that's the most important thing, I think. So,
I think those types of elements can really bring a track to life, especially if you're working in the box and you're using mostly samples or synths or VSTs. There's something nice about just a recording that has a sense of space and a sense of environment, a natural room reverb to it that I think adds a lot of character. It goes a long way. You get kind of more out of it than you expect, more than just the sound, but there's a vibe to it as well.
no, definitely. I mean, I think that's what I experienced doing the Lockdown Sounds Challenge last year. And we got some really interesting samples, and some of them were super raw as well. But it did just, the hour that you had to make this track or whatever it was you were doing, it was just, it just brought it out more, that I don't know
Mm,
what it was, why, but you had all these authentic raw recorded samples and it just gave that space, as you said, and it gave that kind of
mm,
character to whatever you were using the sounds for. So yeah, I mean, for my own music making, I mean, I generally work in the box and use VSTs. I've got a couple of synths, but it's mainly a VST head. I have been for a long time, but actually sampling just lifts everything even more. I
mm.
think yeah, and especially your own samples as well when you can go out and record stuff. It's really exciting, and you can put some of your personality into it as well. You can oh, I was sat on this beach in wherever it was, you can a bit of memory in there that you can put into your own
Yeah.
track. that is meaningful to you. Yeah, it's pretty powerful.
That is something that, as I go back and listen to music I've recorded, years, decades ago now, some of the sort of things that were happening in the room, or the background noises, or just the memories of, oh, this was so and so recorded that part, my friend, whoever, um, that really, in retrospect, is a big part of my enjoyment of going back and listening to
Mm,
all that old music. Some of the other stuff that was more just sort of in the box and didn't really have my own personal touch on it feels a little flatter.
mm,
There's like, and it could just be my own head because I know what happened and I was there, but it
mm.
does give it an extra dimension.
No, definitely. I mean, I guess I like to think a bit like comparing it to photography a bit as well. It's you're capturing a moment, and
Mm.
you'll revisit some of those old photographs, be it on your old camera, film camera, which obviously has got a character to it, but the early digital cameras we had that are really pixelated,
Hmm.
some of those still have quite character to them, even though they don't look great nowadays and compared to the high end
Yeah.
pixels we have on our phones. But I've got some great pictures from holidays that are on a crappy little digital camera, and the
Hmm.
pictures are great, but it's obviously really grainy. But it's still that memory, and yeah, it's powerful.
Right.
Yeah, I like to think that similar to sampling, really, with music and audio. I think you're basically going out, capturing a moment in time.
Yeah.
And, yeah,
Yeah. The music is that essentially, I guess, right? It's a moment
yeah,
in time
yeah,
and sound.
no, exactly.
Are there any favorite samples? Anything interesting that stick out from your memory from last year?
Uh Last year. Well, that's a good question.
Or
I mean,
this year, or anything like that to you is like, "Oh, that was a cool thing to record."
yeah, I mean, this is quite cliched, I guess, but I like my bird calls and bird song, but there's quite a bit of that. And I think if you look back at field recording, I think field recording actually started right with nature.
Yeah,
I think
probably.
some of the early field recorders were going out capturing birdsong.
Mm.
But yeah, there's some beautiful people recordings that people submitted around that. There was some quite interesting submissions last year. We had someone playing with sex toys, which was quite fun. There was someone brushing their teeth and using
Mm.
bathroom implements. That was quite fun and quite creative. Some people went quite crazy with it. And then we had people playing instruments as well, some really nice piano, lovely sort of Spanish guitar. Yeah, bit of percussion. Yeah, I mean, I think people did think percussion a lot as well. Obviously, it can be a good basis for making a track, having the
Mm.
percussive elements, and yeah, we had quite a bit of that as well. Yeah, we had a good variety. Yeah, the sex toys were most interesting. I don't know how it had gone down some of the sounds in the tracks, but yeah, yeah, it was fun.
Well, it's always interesting how you can take things that from one context, and when you bring it into another world, it
Yeah.
becomes, something else. I recently saw this video. I guess it's a couple years old, but it was about making the sounds from the game Mortal Kombat,
Oh yeah.
fighting game, where they're breaking bones and ripping appendages off each other's bodies. And so much of it was done with fruit, like just crushing like green peppers really close to the mic. Um, and it's, you would never really think of that, but when you put it in that context, it fits with the visual. So I'm sure it almost never matters, like
Yeah.
what you get. And there is always a way to turn it into something, with a little
No,
creative
absolutely,
thinking.
absolutely. I mean, I think that's the thing. As soon as you've got the raw sound, it's like, how can you then treat that sound and what
Mm.
can you do with it? And, pitching things down or up, or, starting to get into the process of playing with envelopes and stuff. You can do so much with sound now. It's crazy.
So you said last year it was 1 hour, right?
That's right. Yeah.
So that's a lot. That's not a lot of time to not only start with. Are you exclusively using these samples, or are you allowed to?
That's exactly it. Yeah, it's exclusive. So I think last year it was a bit of a it wasn't like a big public thing, the hour thing. It was more just between some producers, and it was really just come up with some ideas within that hour,
Hmm.
and limit yourself that way. I mean, it was amazing. If you, I went through a bit of a process in the end, having done probably about, I think we did about 10 weeks of it. And by the 10th week, everyone was way better for
Right.
starters. But also, I think we'd all worked out our process a bit. Like, okay, you get sent the samples, what do you do with them? And then how can you make your workflow work within an hour to create something? I mean, sometimes it would just be like someone had treated a sample and there was like a nice, like floaty ambient pad or something. Some people, amazing, like they created tracks that were just like, how have you done that in an hour?
Yeah.
It's, yeah, it's a really good way to push yourself, I think. Yeah, challenge yourself, like time limits. But yeah, obviously this year 24 hours, we just felt, actually, I mean, we've got about 30 registered producers for the project this year, all around the world. And we just thought, well, time zones, because it's all around the world. We
Hmm.
want everyone to have the same amount of time. We're working at the same sort of time. So 24 hours is a good sort of overlapping period. But also that gives people much more time to create something, a bit more than just like an idea.
Hmm.
So, but at the same time, 24 hours still, yeah,
Still
it's not
quick.
like,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I think obviously you can create a lot of ideas within 24 hours, but you might not have the fully polished thing as you want it, but
Hmm.
that's fine too. I think I'm sure there's going to be some good production still, but yeah, I'm sure for me and maybe a lot of others listening share this. You can spend like a good day writing a track, and then it can take you weeks to get it like to the point where you're really happy with it.
Hmm.
And that final polish. Yeah. So, or months or years. I mean, I've got tracks that sat on my
Sure.
hard
Oh
drive
yeah.
for years, but still
Lifetimes.
wanting to finish. Yeah. uh,
What were some things that you learned along the way that helped you get better and speed up your process?
Yeah, I mean, I could talk through that a little bit.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, so I think we had about 10 samples sent to us each week. And what I do, first of all, is just organize them,
Hmm.
like really listen to them. Well, obviously within an hour, you didn't have much time, but very quickly put them in my Ableton timeline and then just listen to which ones I liked, maybe take little snippets from some. But I always had in the back of my mind, like what these sounds could be used for. So if there was like a particular percussive sounding thing, that would be great for percussion, for example. Something that maybe had sort of lower frequencies, or something that could had a good enough attack that could be pitched down, could be created into a bass. With my own music, I love playing with pads. I just love like lush pads. So anything with like that slow attack, or like we had some examples like people playing like I think it's like rubber bands and or like scraping things, and you could make some really interesting like pad sounds out of them. So yeah, I just sort of organize them like that. Think about what might be my sort of drums, what might be my percussion bass, and yeah, pads, and then maybe some keys elements. Once I've done that, I'd maybe move some of them into a sampler where I could play with them further, put them into like maybe tweak the amp envelope maybe a bit, or filter it a bit. And then for me, because I play a little bit of keys. I mean, I'm not like absolutely fluent, but I was classically trained when I was a kid, and I played around with jazz piano a bit. Improvisation is another big part of my process as
Mm.
well. But I use the tuner in Ableton for pretty much every sound, apart from drums and percussion maybe, but tuner played a big part of it. So getting those sounds in tune so that I can then play them on the keys. Then I'd have them all organized. So maybe you have like 6 to 10 tracks, maybe in a sampler. And then for me, and this is one of the best features of Ableton over recent years, obviously we've had the 11 update, which is amazing. Capture,
Yeah.
starting a track, just blank canvas, you've got all your sounds organized, right, bashing out a few ideas, and then you can find your tempo, like something, a groove you're happy with, hit the capture button. Great, we've got a start, and then you build on it from there. And that's how I generally started.
Mm.
And yeah, I mean, I've listened back like by chance because I put some of my tracks in like iTunes or whatever, and sometimes they crop up. And some of them have come up recently, and I've gone, "What's this? This is a good track." And, oh, it's from that sample challenge
Yeah.
from me. Like, wow, I should work on this more. Yeah, I think that limitation. I think you've talked about this on the podcast, and I think a lot of people do. Limitations are everything.
Mm.
That time limit, it really pushes you. It really makes you go, right, okay, I've got to organise quickly and get this done, and make quick decisions as well.
Well, I think every step of that process you just described are things you could spend hours on alone.
Yeah.
Organizing your sounds, figuring out what you want to use, putting them in samplers. I'm sure you must, I don't know if you were strict about it, but I'm sure you must have at least mentally had some sort of like clock saying, all right, I've been fooling around with this enough. I need to move on to the next thing.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's like, oh, I've got half an hour. I've just got the samples organized. Right, quick, what am I going to do with them?
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I mean, I guess the pressure wasn't as much to get something finished. But equally, you wanted to submit something. You had to submit something. So it was like, yeah, sometimes I'd try and get the quick decision on the samples, which samples I'm going to use, done as quickly as we could. And as I said, as time went on, that process did become quicker. It did, of course, depend on the samples we had,
Right.
because sometimes you'd have really tricky samples. You'd just have really percussive things, for example. And you've got nothing to play melody with, or it's like, how am I going to do this? And that's where maybe the effects came in a little bit more as well. So yeah, alongside putting stuff into a sampler, I probably would make an effects chain as well, for particular sounds to help emphasize them, or completely transform them as well.
Do you go into these projects with an idea of like a type of song you want to make, or does that kind of happen based on what you get with the samples?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I think, as I said, I just love improvising. So part of Plugged, we're a partner in Make Music Dave this year, really. Plugged is about kind of community and getting people together. But what we have been running before the pandemic is an open jam, electronic music jam, using Ableton Link.
Hmm.
And that's all about improvisation. And that's really always been my process. I love music. I listen to all sorts of music. I'm very influenced by dance-based stuff, I guess, electronic-based stuff. But sometimes you just sit down and, if you've got some sounds together, like I described, it's playing. It's just bashing around, It's like, I've got these sounds on my keyboard. Great. Let's have a noodle. Again, maybe if you've come up with some good, hit that capture button. Incredible, I think that's just so powerful. Yeah, sometimes I do sit down and think, okay, I want to make an ambient track, or I might start a techno sort of 130 BPM, or but I think BPM can help a little bit as well. But yeah, I generally, if I come up with an idea for like what I want to do, sometimes it doesn't make it, but I come up with something else, and it's it's still like something I'm happy with. So I prefer the approach to music making that's just like experimenting and seeing what comes out personally.
Improv,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, I can understand why Capture's your friend then. And
Oh,
in
definitely.
case anyone that's listening is not sure what Capture is, it's a feature in Ableton Live where it's basically always listening to what you're playing on a MIDI instrument. It's always paying attention. So if you are just playing around with a preset or something and you do something you like, you can hit the capture button and it'll give you all that MIDI. And if it's the first thing you've done, it will estimate and make a good guess at what BPM you're playing at, which I think is one of the coolest parts about Capture. Because, I mean, as a musician, as a guitar player, I don't pick up my guitar and say, I'm going to play at 124 BPM. Like, I'll just play. So if I'm just playing like on the drum pads or I'm playing something on the keys, I'm not thinking about that. I don't have to think about that because it'll make usually a pretty accurate guess at the time. And that's, a fun way to work, to just play until you feel something and then, oh, let's grab that. And it's at the time, it's got the musical elements you need. And it's a great way to capture those little improvisational moments that happen once in a while. It also
Yeah.
dispels the myth that you just had, I did it perfectly before, but I wasn't recording. It shows you, well,
No, exactly. I think yeah, totally agree. And like starting an idea with it as it just gets the tempo going, it takes away that pressure of like, I'm working to the grid, you know?
yeah,
It's like literally you can have your sound on your whatever MIDI controller you've got and you're just bashing around, having fun. And
mhm,
that's, you know, gonna make your music much more interesting when you're just like not worried about, I've got to get it in the grid and on time. It's like, I'm just feeling it, you know?
yeah,
And that's, yeah, I think that's a really powerful part of it.
hmm,
Um, yeah, I'm interested in trying to use it in live shows a little bit. I haven't done that yet, but yeah, I'd love to sort of, yeah, especially if you did an improv sort of live set, which I've done a little bit of, but you
hmm,
know, kickstarting it with just capture would be great.
yeah.
You know, I
Brave
don't know
too.
if anyone out there has done it. So yeah, it's brave. Yeah, I guess
Yeah.
maybe a bit of practice,
Oh
but
yeah. But still, it's a cool idea.
mm,
And I'd like to do things like that with audio sometimes too. It's a little different, but I might just have live record whatever I do for the next however long I do it. And
mm,
it does that, that whole thing that happens and you hit record and then like you tense up a little bit and everything becomes really important. If
yeah,
I'm just letting it run, I kind of forget and I slip into it a little better. And then I can go back and listen to and go through that whole long file and find the good elements and capture those, the old
yeah, yeah,
school
yeah,
way and
yeah,
figure out like how they work. Um, but I must
no,
imagine if you're doing this in an hour, there has to come a point where you say, "All right, that's what I need to pick something to work with." Because that's
yeah,
one of the dangers of the method I'm describing is I can sit here for an hour, I'm noodling on synths and like, oh, what have I been doing? Um,
yeah.
how do you make those decisions? It must be because I think making music is just making decisions. It's committing, moving forward, committing,
Definitely.
and that's hard when there's a endless amount of options at your fingertips. Uh,
Yeah.
do you have any advice or any ways you approach that where you decide, okay, here's what I'm going to start building on?
Yeah. I mean, I guess layering loops is another a good thing to think about, you know, coming up with a good 4, 8 or 16 bar or even 32. I mean, I always start with a smaller loop and then build on it. And then you can maybe just improvise on top and then that brings it all together, sticks it with a bit of glue kind of
Mm,
thing. Um, but I guess that's something we're all familiar with. Loop based. That's how most people produce music now. We create loops, and then it's how do you go beyond that as well.
right.
um, but yeah, I think when you're in that strict time limit, yeah, come up with a good loop, move on, maybe take some elements. I mean, actually, what I did do in the hour, and this is what I and the sort of subtractive kind of arranging thing
Okay.
where you kind of make loads of loops or layers and layers of sounds in one loop, put it all across the whole timeline, and then you kind of delete stuff or press zero on it. If you're an Ableton user, zero is a
Yeah.
really powerful tool.
Deactivate.
Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, deactivate the sound and just listen to and build your track up that way. And then drop things out completely as well. I found that was a really good, quick way of coming up with a very quick arrangement.
Mm,
Um, and especially when you're layering sounds, so you've got your 10 samples all layered and how you want them, they're all in tune and you played them in. It's amazing if you've just been layering and layering on top of stuff. When you strip it back and hear some of those sounds individually, they can be so powerful on their own, and
hmm.
that's what I love about the subtractive arranging thing. It's you can hear things that you hadn't heard before just by soloing or having, you say, your percussive bits and this particular sound on its own when before it was just layered on top of everything.
Right. I love that method too, where I'll build up to basically the most energetic, dense, loops, and then
Mhm.
stretch it across. I like to work in session view a lot in
Mm.
live, but I do think in order to finish things, I need to get to arrangement view
Mm.
relatively soon. Like it's kind of
Yeah.
like it's fun to play here, but I know like I got to get here. I got to get to arrangement view
Yeah.
sooner than later because I'm in danger of just being in loop land and you know. But that method of taking things out, I basically have my most intense, powerful moments done, and then I'm paring it down. And you're right, like sometimes you realize that less is more that way. That all of that
Yeah.
stuff you've been adding on is might be cool, but it might also be overkill.
Yeah.
And every time you add an element, it takes away from the detail of the other elements. Like you don't get to appreciate it. And I think in a sampling type of workflow, when you have all these creative, interesting sounds, you want the listener to be able to appreciate the detail of it. And sometimes peeling the layers back is the best way to get there.
No, definitely, definitely. It's funny you mentioned a session view and arrangement view. I started using Ableton when it was what, Live 5, I think. And for me, then Ableton Live was just for performing live, and I
Hmm.
always used session view. And it's only over recent years I've been using arrangement view, starting tracks that way. And it has helped me move things quicker. And certainly for the challenge, that's how I'd start, because I knew I had to do an arrangement fairly
So
quickly.
right
So
into arrangement. Just
yeah, yeah.
yeah.
So right straight into arrangement. That said, I'm doing some other stuff now where we're recording, like you were saying, just recording audio. So doing a jam with a co-producer of mine, and we just do these like jam sessions, but we multi-track record a bit to an extent, and then we take snippets from those and then chuck them back into session view where you've got the loops, and then you
Uh-huh.
can play around with them there, and then go back to arrangement view,
Right.
which
Cool.
is it's super powerful. It's like wow, you know, yeah.
Yeah, you can kind of grab whatever you have that's working. Then you have all that freedom in session view to try. It's so easy to drop things in and out and mix the chorus drums with the verse part or
Yeah,
little things
exactly.
like that.
Yeah, and you're not sort of scrabbling around on the timeline on your arrangement if it's a really long recording. If you know you've got the tight loop that you
Yeah.
like, it's there, and
Right.
then you can, yeah. So, but yeah, maybe I will probably do that a bit more for the 24-hour challenge because, yeah, an hour, yeah, you can keep going back and forth. It's
You don't
like,
have
right, got to
time
do
for
something
that
quick.
kind of nonsense.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But 24 hours, maybe you can. I mean, yeah, I'm not planning to do an all-nighter, should I say, but yeah.
Hmm. Do you have a
I'll,
plan on how you're going to work? Are they going to be separate sessions? Maybe sound design for an hour or mixing?
Oh, yeah, good question.
Okay.
I haven't really thought about that plan yet. But yeah, I think I'd certainly go through a bit of the process I described from last year. But yeah, maybe there probably is a bit more space for jamming around with those sounds then, you
Hmm.
know. So yeah, we'll see. We'll see. See where it goes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, I mean, obviously everyone's got different workflow. We've got some really interesting producers involved. Uh, some that you may be familiar with.
I see Ned Rush on there, which is pretty
Ned
cool.
Rush, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. We've got a couple of fellow Ableton certified trainers. We've got from the UK, Martin Delaney,
Yeah. Okay. Good.
Marcello Ruju. We've got
Nice.
quite a few representing in the US, from Chicago, Texas, Florida.
Let's see. Dan
Um,
Freeman is on there.
Dan Freeman, do you know his work?
Yeah, and
Or-
he's got his like kind of push. I forget what he calls it. It's like a push guitar he built basically
Yeah,
with
like
the
a
MIDI
push
controls.
guitar.
Yeah,
Amazing.
yeah.
Yeah, I checked out his video. It looks wicked. Yeah, I'm really intrigued to see what he does. That would be incredible. Who else we've got? Istanbul, a guy called Aaron Togoz, Pakistan, Mohammed Akad Jamil, and then Nigeria. We've got a huge collective of producers in
Mm.
Nigeria. So yeah, I mean they've been pushing it really well. Like we've had, as I said, we've had quite a few sample submissions from there. Producers like Floraka, Effie Mac Rock, Cracker Mallow. Yeah, some really interesting. I mean, I love my Afro beats, and yeah, it's some really interesting stuff those guys are doing. So yeah, I'm intrigued how people will have different takes on it all, really, as well. I think that's another part of it being a global thing.
That is always fascinating to me too. Is you can give the same people the same or different people the same samples, and they come up with wildly different. I mean, there's I think Andrew Wong might have begun the
Yes.
four producers, one sample type of thing
Yeah, yeah.
that I've seen a lot of people doing their own takes on, which is cool that it just goes to show like inside each one of these sounds, there's worlds waiting to be unlocked. And even if you yourself go at the same sounds at different times, you come up with all kinds of different material.
No, definitely. I mean, it's amazing what you can do, like how different you can make things with samples.
Mm.
Yeah, it's incredible. Yeah, so super excited. So we have 30 producers kind of registered as kind of official producers for the project, but also we are planning to do a kind of public bank of some of the samples as well, on which will be released on the 20th of June, the day before Make Music Day. So anyone can go on there and download those samples and have a go themselves as well. So if you're anyone out there, fancy it, give it a go. We just, inviting more people to participate really. And if you're up for it, submit what you do to social media, mainly on Instagram, on Twitter, but just using the hashtags MixMash Studios and Make Music Day.
Mhm.
We want to see get everyone active doing it. I'm really motivated by more people participating, getting involved in making music, and what a better day to do it than Make Music Day.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Is there, do all the samples sort of get like unlocked or released to everybody at a certain time?
Yeah, so for the producers, because the call out's active for the next week as well. So registered producers will be receiving a selection of samples, and we're hoping, depending on how many we get, people will get different samples.
Oh, okay. Nice.
But the bank will publish on the 20th will be just one selection of what we get submitted.
Mhm.
We'll make sure there's a good variety, so people can have something to play with. And I think the other good element of it is that everyone that submitted samples, we just sort of ask them to say something about their sample as well.
Yeah.
And hopefully we can acknowledge them as well. Ask producers to say which samples they used, or anything like that.
Sometimes there is a good story behind it. And
Exactly.
sometimes if you don't know what you're listening to, you don't know what it is.
No, exactly. Yeah. So it's excited to see what comes of it, really.
Mm-hmm.
And then we're going to be doing a broadcast on Make Music Day in the UK, which I think will be out in the States as well, where we'll be showing some of the tracks. We've got a couple of producers that are going to share a bit of their process as well,
Cool.
and some techniques. And likewise on social media, we're getting people to publish what they're doing, some of their process on there as well. So look out for that too.
That'll be nice to hear how they overcome the challenge of not only the limited sample selection, but the limited time too.
Yeah.
I think it's a powerful tool, the deadline and the limitation of whatever sounds you use. It's just about moving forward, and making those choices and getting it done. And it's not enough time really to worry about how good it is.
Yeah, no, exactly.
I do the January challenge every January, making a track every single day. And I think like there's so many like revelations that come to me and like philosophical understandings while I'm doing it. And one of them was like, I don't have time to like this what I'm working on, There's not enough time. I have to just move with it and go with it. And a lot of times, a lot of the best music, some of my favorite music, it's not overly complicated or extremely intelligent necessarily, but there's just something about it. And I think even some of my favorite songs, if I just took them at the face value, like the chords, the initial idea here, the chords, a lot of those songs I'd probably like, it doesn't strike me yet until whatever else it is comes into play. But in doing those challenges where you have those like insane time limitations, you don't have time to worry about that. And eventually what starts to happen is you find a way to make it into something you like.
Yeah.
And it was a good exercise. And when I realized that, which was only like this year towards the end, it was pretty liberating, and it was kind of gave me like confidence to just trust that eventually my own taste in music, my own personal preferences will come into play enough that whatever it is I have will start to become something I like.
No, absolutely. Yeah, it's just keep going with it, really, isn't it? I think.
Yeah. I think the
Yeah,
worst outcome could be that it doesn't turn into something I like, but at least I got through the steps. I
yeah,
practiced the process.
yeah. No, that's it. I mean, I think that's an important element of music making anyway. Today, it's like, it's so hard to get your music listened to these days when everyone's out there. You're a
Yeah.
big hole, but that process is, you should value that. It's fun. That's what it should be. It should be fun. Enjoy
Yeah.
it. And keep going with it. I think when you've got the time limitations and the challenge thing, which it's certainly motivated me, you're working to a deadline, you've got to do something. So just keep going and keep going. And, it might not be perfect at the end, but, as you say, you've got through the steps.
Mhm.
And if it's not for this track, your next one might be even better as a result,
Yeah. And
Yeah.
and you always have that built-in excuse that I only had 24 hours.
Exactly. Yeah.
I had to do this in an
What did you
hour.
expect?
Yeah.
But
And
yeah, I guess some like great dance tunes that I can't think of any examples off the top of my head, but I've read about loads of tracks that have just been created in 3 hours, right? Like
mhm,
some real big hits. They
yeah,
have been, and ultimately that track is a hit because of that 3 hours, not because it's polished and produced at the end. It's
right.
the actual idea is the authenticity of it, right? And
Mm,
going back to what we were saying about sampling, if the sound's great and it's on a chitty old iPhone recording, if the sound's great, that's going to stand up more than a high quality recording of something that's an average kind of sound. It's
absolutely. Yeah.
yeah. So the same with your production. It's like your raw ideas are most important, and then I mean, I go around in circles, getting things as polished as I like, and my mixing or whatever, and that stage of it,
Mhm.
which I think that can be the hardest part for some people. Or certainly is for me. I'm more about just improvising and process. That's what I love doing. That's why I've got a hard drive full of ideas, as we all have.
Yeah.
But that's again going back to what I was saying about plugged, the link jam thing, which I don't know if you've done any of those yourself.
With
Um,
Ableton Link.
yeah,
Yeah, they're fun. And even if it's just by yourself, you might have like the
yeah.
iPhone playing something and then the computer's playing something else. And I've done it even in I do a music production club at my school that I teach.
Okay.
It's after school thing, and it's not enough time really to get too far, too deep. It's a weekly thing, and especially this year, right? But in the past, I've had all the computers on the same Wi-Fi, so just have everyone linked together and just playing beats.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
for me, it's like the one walking around the room, listening and checking out and helping people. It's so much nicer when things are playing together instead of like eight different, we don't have headphones. So everyone's just
Right.
coming right out of the iMac speakers that they have. So it's nice when it's at least like in time with each other. And
Yeah, no, definitely, definitely. I mean, again, another amazing, powerful bit of technology. But yeah, I've found that when that came out, that was kind of motivated me to start up a little local jam
yeah,
session. And from that, we built a nice little community of music makers. And literally, we would meet up, we would do 3, sometimes up to 5 hours. I mean, we don't do it that long anymore, but started doing it kind of behind closed doors in a community center. And literally, we just turn up, plug in, and jam for 3 hours. And it was all about being in the moment. We didn't really record it to start with, and it was just like a lot of fun. We're just making music. It's
yeah,
process. And you've come away feeling really like, yeah, that was amazing. Then started recording it a little bit, and actually, so listening back like years later to some of the recordings, some of them, those ideas were incredible because it's almost like music was naturally happening as a conversation,
Mm.
without us talking, without anyone doing it. Everyone was listening attentively to each other and contributing something. And yeah, I want to go back. I've got a whole like load of material to go through, but I think a few edits of some of those I might publish at some point. Um,
That's cool.
uh, yeah, and it's that going back to that what I was saying about playing, just having fun playing. Like I think that's really powerful for me
Yeah.
in my process.
Yeah, and so much music, almost everything now is like recorded all the time.
Mm,
I know like pretty much every time I'm making music, I'm recording on some level. Sometimes it's nice to just play and just let it
yeah,
go out and it's gone. It was just that was the time. And
yeah.
there's a nice I don't I like carefreeness. I'm not sure what it is exactly, but there's something cool about just knowing that this is only going to happen right now.
Hmm.
And we're not worried about like if the mics are in the right place or the levels are correct, or it's just we're letting it happen and
No,
being there.
exactly. Yeah, and getting into that zone, not thinking about it, that's when magic can happen. I think
Hmm.
I've certainly had that in some of the jams I've experienced. Wow, this is really locked in. How did we get here?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty good. So
Yeah, Link
yeah,
Link is like the perfect tool for that.
mm,
The idea that it seems so obvious, really, but I guess we got so used to like in the MIDI world having like the master, then everything
mm,
else that's following along, and it's stuck. There's one clock that is in control. The idea that you can just come in and play and leave, and it doesn't affect anyone else. And if one
mm.
person changes the tempo, everyone follows. Just like in real playing, if the drummer starts speeding up, well, we're along for the ride for that.
Yeah, that's great.
It gives it a nice natural feeling that I never got syncing things, with MIDI time clocks and all of that kind of
Oh,
stuff.
yeah, I remember struggling with some of that. And yeah,
You hit
the master
stop
and the
on that and
slave.
everything stops and
Yeah, yeah, and it was never that stable, really.
yeah.
And there'd always be a glitch, and yeah, but yeah, no, it's pretty solid. I mean, to segue back to sampling, I guess, from the link thing. I mean, the iOS apps you've got that are all linkable as well. There's
Mhm.
some really powerful stuff there. I mean, I've been using the iPad a lot more for making music now as well.
Oh yeah.
But some great little sampling tools, yeah, yeah, and
What are
apps on
you
there.
what are you using? What do you enjoy?
So there's the Brambros Gauss. Have you come
Oh
across that?
yes, I have it. I haven't gone into it
It's
much yet, but
uh, that's like amazing, just for that kind of tape effect.
yes, it's
I've been
very
using that as a
lo-fi,
looper.
right? Yeah,
Yeah,
that
it's
one looks really
amazing.
cool.
Love it.
I gotta play with that. Yeah.
Yeah, I've been using Drambo a lot recently as well, which is it's really nice, like kind of groove box, but also modular based, so you can actually
Mm.
build your own kind of synths and stuff. But it's got a lot of samples in it as well, samplers in it. Yeah, so yeah, and I guess opening up this kind of challenge to anyone who's got a phone. There's loads of great free apps out there now that you could, just use as a sampler to play
Yeah.
around with as well if you wanted to have a go. Yeah, another great one to mention. So plugging the iOS apps, but Koala
Uh-huh.
Sampler. Have you come across that one?
Yeah.
That's really good, and I think that I'd recommend that to anyone with a phone. It's great.
That
Um,
one's real easy. It's got the boxes where you put each sample in,
yeah,
almost
no,
like
exactly.
MPC
Yeah,
style.
yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. It's super powerful. So yeah, if you've got a phone and you fancy giving this a go as well, like
Yeah.
yeah, another good way, very accessible way to make music. I think that's the other big thing about technology now. It's all much more accessible to everyone. And again, the spirit of Make Music Day is, going back to the origins in France in the 80s. It's not just like professional music
Hmm.
makers, it's anyone, everyone get out and make music, So use the tools that are they're in your phone
Hmm.
if you fancy it.
I love
Uh,
seeing the look on someone's face that's not a musician, never played an instrument. And even if you just give them like the tambourine and teach them the hit on the three of every
mm,
beat, to be like, oh, I'm playing, like that's sometimes that's like enough to
Yeah,
pull
yeah.
them into the whole world and get them into becoming a musician.
No, definitely.
But the idea, like, you can participate. Even if you're just clapping your hands in time, and that can add a lot. It can really,
Oh, completely. I mean, you just brought back a memory of many years ago. I did a bit of a trip around Brazil, which is incredible, but went
hmm,
to Rio and saw this band. And there's a guy playing the triangle, and he was just amazing. He mesmerized. It's so in time, but just a guy playing a triangle, he was like, he's amazing. It was
hmm,
incredible. And it's just like one little inch, like one bit of
right.
percussion that, you know, part of something bigger. And obviously in Brazil, it's huge percussion, you know.
Yeah.
But but yeah, that any little element can add something huge
Hmm.
to whatever you're doing. Yeah, to any music. So yeah, be it that little phone recording you're going to send us, or have a go. Yeah.
Yeah, that's nice. So it sounds like a really cool thing, and I love the challenge aspect to it, the time limit, the limited amount of sounds, because I think those are really good exercises to put yourself through. I love coming down here and seeing where the wind takes me and being open to every possible everything, even just if you have a DAW, you've basically got endless material to work with.
Hmm.
They're not always the most productive sessions, though. They
Mm,
often just become these things, like you said, that just end up on your hard drive. But
mm.
having that, like, just going through the exercise, the drill of going through the process is so valuable.
No,
So that when you
definitely,
actually
definitely.
do go in there and the spirit carries you into wherever and you capture something that you really like, you know what to do. You've got the
Yeah,
experience. I
yeah.
finished a song in an hour, so there's no reason why I can't turn this thing into something.
Yeah, exactly. It just moves your practice on, really, doesn't it? It's
Hmm.
like the more you do it, the more you challenge
Like
yourself in that way,
reps
the
and
better you're going
working
to get
out.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah, I think there's a lot to be said. I mean, I think learning from the challenge last year as well, and you know, over the last few years, just organizing your sounds outside of like this challenge. Um, if you can go through your sample banks that you've got, and for me, I've just been deleting loads of stuff.
Hmm.
You know, it's like, am I going to use that sample? No, no. Find the ones you really like. You know, the ones that are really the ones that mean something to you.
Hmm.
And you know, if you've got a smaller bank of samples, you're likely to do much more with them. I think
Yeah.
that's something I took away. But
I
not having that like gigs and gigs of samples, it's just yeah, you can spend
exactly.
too long looking at it. It's like what, you know, which I've done. I've been there. You're like, yeah. I'm trying to strip down my hard drives with samples now.
Yeah. You know what?
So,
Before we were talking, for whatever reason, I was running into some sort of problem loading Ableton Live. It crashed, and I was playing around with. Sometimes I find if I delete the preference files, it clears things up. But whatever I did, it started having to rescan all my plugins again.
mm,
And I'm now on what is the latest Mac? I finally made the jump. I don't even know. Big Sur, right? Um,
okay, the one that everyone's been saying, oh, is it ready? Is
yeah,
everything ready for it?
not everything's ready for it, but
Okay,
most of what I use is. So
okay.
it's really hasn't been a problem, but it's rescanning these plugins again. And so many of them were like, no, that one's not going to work because it's this, because it's that. And I was kind of like, who cares? Like, good almost. Like, I need the room. And I can remember back in the earlier days, when I first started on the computer, um, the 4 gigs of sample. Wow, that's a lot. That's great. Now it's like, oh no, 4 gigs. Like, I want something that's like 100 megabytes.
Yeah, exactly. You know what they are. You know they're good. That's
Yeah,
great. You
it's
don't have
like,
to spend all that
oh
time.
no, that's too much. I can't have that. And
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
not because I don't have the space on the computer. It's just, I just don't want 4 gigs of indecision.
Exactly that. Yeah.
Yeah.
If you can make that decision before you're making the music, it's going to be even more fun, right? As well, you can go
Yeah.
straight in. It's like, I guess that's going back to that process that I learned is, organize what your different elements of your track are beforehand.
Hmm.
Then you've got them. Then you just play.
Yeah.
And I guess it's the same with if you're managing your samples and just keeping the ones you really like, then you can just play with them. It's great. You straight in, have fun.
Hmm.
You'll come up with some great things. Not go, oh, how am I going to find that kick drum? Okay, let's scroll through the millions of kick drums that,
I know. Oh,
which we all do and we've all done.
yeah.
I'm not,
Boom,
I'm
boom,
not saying
boom, boom.
yeah, yeah,
It's down arrow. It
yeah.
reminds me of when I'm teaching my high school students writing in English class. It's like the outline part. Nobody wants to do the outline.
Mm,
Nobody wants to plan what they're going to do before they do it. They just want to start writing. Like, here we go. And it's the
yeah.
same thing with making music. And one of the projects with my Berkeley class and it's a sampling class actually too, is for the final project to plan it out. It was a week ago, actually, my semester, we were doing that. And your job is to plan it out, set your limitations. And every semester, I see a lot of resistance to that. You know,
Right.
people I don't want to limit my creativity, like things like that. And I get that because as much as I preach it, I don't do it every time either.
Sure.
But in even in this class, it's a 3-week project, which can be seen as a tight deadline in a way as well. Um, but that planning, it gives you like a place to aim your arrow. Like you don't have to hit the
Mm,
target all the time, but having that, just know which direction to shoot. And some of the people that I speak to on the podcast that do like film, television, or like video game music commercials, they've said to me like, I don't know how anyone does a song, how anyone finishes a song without these specific criteria. Like when you get the job for like the car commercial, they want
mm-hmm.
this one luxury, one smooth, speed, power. Like you get like these
Yeah.
like guidelines and maybe even the reference
Sure.
track. Like, and that for a lot of them, they've said, I don't know how anyone gets any music done without first figuring that stuff out.
Yeah. So, when you're teaching this class, what are the kind of planning kind of elements then? What
It's
what
the
what
planning
sort of things you
phase.
could?
So you might decide, like you kind of set up rules for yourself, guidelines, limitations. And usually it involves picking out like an inspiration track that, not that you're
Hmm.
trying to copy it, but maybe there's some element to it. Maybe you just like the way the vocals processed, or you think it's cool
Hmm.
how the arrangement is put together. Just something. Maybe it's just the vibe of the song.
Hmm.
Oh, I like this like pool party feeling. That's what I'm going for. So you have like that idea a little bit, and then you might tell yourself like, I'm only going to use 16 tracks, or I'm only going to use samples I recorded myself, or
Hmm.
I'm going to make sure that whatever it is, I'm going to
Hmm.
use this particular plugin. Um, but by making that choice, you've eliminated countless decisions.
Yeah.
You've decided, it's almost like going to a restaurant. You're gonna have breakfast, lunch, dinner, dessert. Like once you make that decision, think of all the things you can wipe off the menu,
Yeah. Yeah.
and that's what you're doing with your production that way.
No,
So
definitely.
even a couple things, and one of my favorite ones that someone came up with this semester was they wanted to make a sports like anthem, and they gave that example. Da 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 da. Hey, da da. That's
Oh
played in
yeah.
like
Yep.
countless arenas every day. Um, but what I thought was just so great about like even just that one decision, I mean, it tells you your energy level. It gives you
Yeah.
an idea of like what the people listening to it are going to be doing. It'll give you maybe some ideas on sounds. So in the example he put forth, he had like basketball sounds, like the kick drum was a bouncing ball, and there was kind of like a nothing but net sound, and it was just so cool. And it felt, it had like an anthemic beat that you can like almost like stomp to. So I
Mm.
think like that is just all of the other choices, he's not gonna have to get deep and emotional about like his last relationship. Like that's not the point of this song, and it just clears the road. It gets
Yeah,
like the
yeah.
traffic jams out of the highway.
You kind of know what you're working to, and that's you got your end goal really
Yeah,
as well. That's yeah.
you're in the car knowing where you're driving,
Mm,
what your destination is.
yeah, that's really cool.
You're allowed to make a
Yeah,
stop if something interesting comes up along the way.
yeah, yeah,
You can do sightseeing and stuff, but
yeah.
uh, and you can decide you want to go somewhere else halfway through if the music calls for it. But it it it's it's such a big help, and I see it in my own what in my writing and in my music production. If I have that, I'm so much more likely to finish.
Sure, sure. It's kind of without even going into the computer, isn't it? It's just sitting there thinking about what you want
Yeah.
to do before you do it. Um, which, yeah, I mean, I guess I do that a bit as well, but yeah, um, I think my going back to my improvisation thing, it's just that fun of noodling to start with. But I guess in the back of my mind, I've always got sort of influences, shall we say,
Yeah.
the music I make. So I'm very much inspired by like ambient stuff, or kind of more electronica
Hmm.
sort of vibe. So I guess that I've already got my map in my mind from my influences,
Mm.
which is part of it, isn't it? Um, yeah, as you say, if you're working to a brief as well, that obviously you got to follow that, and I think probably there's a lot of work before you're sat in your studio, really. So it's thinking
Yeah.
about how you're going to do it.
Right.
Um, yeah.
Yeah, the few times I've done like music for some purpose, and it was whatever that might have been, making intro music for something or um, getting that idea is so helpful. Um,
Hmm.
it just it clears the way. It tells you what instruments you're going to use, what sounds, what mood. It's
Hmm.
very helpful.
Yeah, definitely.
And I think I want to make myself some sort of like checklist or maybe even like a spreadsheet or something that's like almost like a form to fill out. Like, okay, what is the listener doing when they hear this song?
Yeah.
Is this like the drive home after the breakup? Is this the drive to the party? Is this
Yeah.
the party? Like where are we? And to just like have some of these elements, planned out, I
Yeah.
think would probably up my productivity.
I really like that, thinking about where the music's going and how people are listening to it as well.
Mm,
I think that's another important part of it, isn't it? I've definitely read something about that recently. Where dance music is about the sound system. Obviously, it's like hearing it and a loud thing.
yeah.
But then there's a lot of more. The age of Spotify and whatnot. There's a lot more music being made for headphones now. It's
Mm,
like the sound design's more important, like where it's taking you in your head.
yeah.
That sort of thing. Um, yeah, no, that's really interesting. That's yeah, super good tip. I like it. Um,
Yeah, because I know like sometimes if I'm not thinking that way, I try to make a song that is for like everything you'll ever do in life in 4 minutes.
mm.
So this is after the breakup. This is when you get back together. This is the party. This is, like, and it becomes a song for every moment becomes a song for none.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's quite possible. Um, I guess I still believe like within all of us, there's kind of some music that wants to come out.
Hmm.
And I think that's where I think improvisation is powerful. If you have some musical skills, obviously it helps more. But um, with the electronic tools you've got now, just playing around. I mean, yeah, I don't
Yeah.
know what the kids are going to be making in the future, but I think it's so much more accessible to everyone now. I've got a nephew who's 6. He loves drumming. He's got natural rhythm.
Mm.
When he was age 3, I saw him on a drum kit, and it just blew my mind. I was like, right, we've
Wow.
got to get him on the drums.
That's cool.
Pestering my sister, who was reluctant about getting him a drum kit, but he
Understandably
had,
so.
yeah, Yeah, I was like, this will teach him how to
What
control
if
his
he likes
tempo.
it?
Yeah, this is it. Well, he's still got the passion for it.
Yeah.
The drum kit is in the garage. It's not as used as much as it could be, shall we say?
Uh-huh.
But yeah, yeah, yeah. This is it. I think the power of music. And going back to the spirit of Make Music Day, anyone can do something musical. Really, I think
Mm.
everyone's got it in them, and it is another form of expression as well. So it doesn't have to be that like, I'm writing something for this purpose. It's more like this is what I'm feeling. I think
Yeah.
there's good balance in that as well.
No, I agree. And that's also maybe a good thing to identify. Like, I'm in the
Mm,
mood for this now. Okay.
definitely, yeah,
It might be after you improv for half an hour and be like, oh, you know what? This is where I'm at. And kind of
yeah.
lock in a little bit.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Yeah.
That's, I guess it's how you segment those different processes as well, right?
Yeah.
It's yeah. I think as you were asking before about the different stages, perhaps like the sound design stage, you
Hmm.
might just like spend hours doing that, and then what are you going to do then with those sounds? And yeah, that's certainly a good thing to do. Break it up.
Mm.
I mean, I guess from your point of view, how would you approach the sample challenge? Any tips from your side for people?
I would probably, um, I would probably segment my process a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
I'd do a figuring out what sounds I want to use, maybe
Mm-hmm.
creating some sounds, and then okay, this is what I have to. This is my palette now. I've got
Mm-hmm.
this or that, and that's not to say I can't if the music calls for it. I might realize, oh, I need some sort of like riser sound or something. I can go back and come up with that, but to I would probably segment it. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think so. And once I get those sounds, it'd probably be an improvisational moment for
Mm-hmm.
some amount of time. But I might use a timer for that, like a literal
Yeah.
timer. I have one on the computer. It's called the Howler timer. It's
Oh, okay.
because a wolf howls when the time's up. But it's nice because you can just set like 10 minutes, and it's just a little floating window, real small. And that's just what you get, whatever you come up with. Yeah, I would think about that. I'd probably want to have some sort of like inspiration early. It might not come until after I hear the samples,
Mm-hmm.
but I might want to like once I get that some piece of music, some song, some album or something that there's some element about it that I'm interested in tapping
Mm-hmm.
into. And it doesn't,
Yeah.
again, not necessarily to copy it, but just, I really like this song structure, this verse, chorus, whatever thing,
Mm-hmm.
or um, yeah, I guess I like the way how this song starts with the drums.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
little things that I
Yeah.
think would be useful. Um, I guess probably in that situation too, I'd sort of let the mood and the purpose of the song be determined by wherever I happen to be that day.
Mm-hmm.
If it's a real sunny day and it's nice out, I might have something a little more fun, or
Yeah. Yeah.
so I'd probably tap into that a little.
No, definitely. I love doing that when you're in a different environment and you get some inspiration.
Yeah.
It can really move things.
That might not be a bad idea too, to work in a different spot, even if
Mm,
it's a different
mm,
room in
yeah.
your living quarters, take it into the bedroom or out to the, kitchen or something.
Mm.
That changes a lot. For many years, I was playing in a band where we played in the kitchen. I
Wow.
took the dining. I was living alone, so I took the dining room table out and put a drum set in.
Amazing.
And
Kitchen beats.
yeah, and it started over the summer. It was just so hot, but like I could leave the screen door open, and it was great. It was just fun, and a different energy, I was used to being in the basement, the muggy, damp, like hot. It's just not a great place for you or your instruments.
Yeah.
So just having that like refreshing change taking the guitar outside, anything to mix it up can be fun.
No, definitely.
That could be a fun project for this project to just see what I can do if I go somewhere else. I'd probably think
Yeah.
about like what I'm sure samplers would be a big part of what I would do. So
Hmm.
maybe I don't know, maybe even the OP1 would become, let's play around with sampling on the OP1.
Mm.
I guess anything too to like make it not a complete loss. I like to think about that a lot when I'm working on something that, even if this doesn't come out great, at least I got better at doing this, or I figured out how to use this thing. You know,
Yeah.
those might be some things I consider trying.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, no, going back to the iPad, I mean, the fact that you can take that anywhere, I find
Yeah.
that really inspiring. It's so good. Stick your headphones on and you can be like in the park or on a bus or
Right.
yeah, it's just and experimenting and constantly creating. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, like right now in New York, like the weather's really nice for the most part. It's not the dead heat of the summer yet, and it's
Hmm.
comfortable. So getting outside is really inspiring, and sometimes being inside is a bummer for me when it's really
Mm.
nice out. So I think taking advantage of that is a great idea.
Definitely, definitely get that inspiration.
Yeah, wherever you can find it. You have to go find it though.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
You can't wait for it.
No,
Especially not when you have a 1 day project. Like
well,
you got to
exactly.
go
Yeah,
out hunting for it.
yeah, yeah. Definitely. Well, hopefully, we're going to have quite a lot of inspiring samples for
Yeah.
sure, and be interesting. Those that do submit, they're just hearing a bit about where they've come from as well. Yeah,
The story, yeah. And that can
yeah,
be the inspiration too. That
yeah,
just that
exactly.
story is a lot of the fun.
Mm.
So it's gonna
Mm.
be June 21st. That's Monday.
Yep.
That'll be probably the next Monday by the time this comes out.
Hmm.
And let's see. I'll put all these notes in the show, or all these links in the show notes. But I think if people just go to makemusicday.org, they'll see a lot of this. The
Yep.
links are kind of there for you to find. But we'll put in like where you can submit your samples, and um, we'll get plugged.org as well.
Yep.
.org.uk.
Yep.
Plug.org.uk would be something worth for people checking out. Is there anywhere else you like to send people? Any for your work in particular, or?
I mean, plug.org.uk, just to mention that, we are running like an online stream event as well,
Mhm.
which we've been running over the last 18 months, getting producers, performers to record short videos that we're streaming. We've been doing that. Yeah, I think we did our seventh the other day. Really amazing, kind of curated events, but always on the lookout for performers for that as well. So it's all on our website. Have a look. And then, as I said, hopefully we're going to be in the UK for UK listeners, going back to some actual physical events soon as well. We're planning to do something in a park in London, outdoor event soon,
Nice.
um, which, all being well, is going to be the 31st of July. But yeah, we'll see. How are things over there? Is it looking like you're going to be starting doing live
Yeah,
music again?
things
Or
have changed a lot in the
yeah,
last month or two here. They've said if you're vaccinated, you don't need to wear masks in most places,
okay,
which is always like it's weird that it's weird kind of thing, you know.
mm,
But there's starting to be little, like venues are having live music again a little bit. And it's happening, and it's nice. Hopefully everything stays good, numbers keep going down, and all of that stuff. Um, but it's looking like the summer is going to be a little more normaler,
okay,
you know. Yeah, hoping it. We stay good. Like I, people
yeah.
are ready. That's
Yeah,
for sure.
yeah.
People are
I
ready.
think we all are. Yeah. So hopefully some live music in New York
Yeah,
again. Yeah,
I'm hoping. Yeah,
get some gigs going.
yeah.
Uh,
Maybe maybe I'm playing with a couple guys. We've got like this three-piece rock band we've been working on since
Oh, nice.
July. We kind of decided to let the three of us be kind of like, we can get together, then we all got our shots, and um but we're just recording right now. So it's been
Yeah,
fun. And
yeah,
a lot of the writing happens in the recording.
yeah.
So
Okay, great.
I'd like to get that squared away before playing live. And anyway, so give everything
Uh,
time.
yeah, yeah. Oh, cool. We'll
Yeah.
look forward to looking out for that as well.
Yeah, yeah. It's
Yeah.
fun stuff. It's nice to have projects and things to work on. And um, sometimes having just a couple other people in it with you makes you push yourself. Because Um, and this was the beauty of like doing so much solo music over the last few years, decade or whatever, is that it's
Hmm.
all in my hands and my control. But at the same time, I can also not do it because there's no one to let down, really.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah,
there's no one to say, nah, I'm not going to come to practice today.
yeah, yeah. No,
So
exactly.
that it's nice. And it's like you said, like that conversation without words. Like I play something, someone else reacts to it, and then I react to what they're reacting to, and they're reacting to what I reacted to, and it just like after a couple minutes, like you're find yourself playing stuff you never ever would have done on your own.
No, absolutely.
You really notice that when you haven't had it in a while.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
it's fun to just experience that again.
No, definitely. Well, here's to more of that for sure.
Yes, definitely.
Onwards, forwards.
Well, this is great what you guys are doing. I will have this out in time so people can learn about it, and we'll get the show notes and everything. Submit samples. Like Rob said, there's nothing that's, I guess, based on the sex toy example of pretty much anything goes. So have fun with it, and don't worry about it being a perfect sample. And if you only have your phone with you, some of the best things I've done came off of phone recordings, and sounds that I wouldn't have otherwise got had I been a little too musically gear snobby about it. Go out and get those sounds. You're there. It's only happening in that moment. Capture the moment.
Absolutely. Looking forward to hearing them.
Yeah. Rob, thanks so much for taking the time to talk and share this with everyone, and for putting it on, because as we've touched upon, it's been a rough time lately, and it's nice to have these like hopeful moments, these communal things that we've all been longing for so long. I think it makes a big difference in not only their music and their abilities as producers, but just their sanity and overall quality of life. So thanks for your contributions to all that.
No, no, thank you so much for having us today. It's been really good. And yeah, look forward to seeing how it progresses.
Great.
So, brilliant.
All right. Well, thank you. And thank you, everyone. Have a great day.
Thank you. Take care. Bye.